Right, this is a video I've been meaning to make for quite a while now, and it's something I started talking about ages ago, like many things on this channel. Influences, and I think I even did was it intro to influences or something like that? Some sort of, loosely talking about a few things anyway, but I've always been aware that it's something that I've wanted to expand on, do you know what I mean? And it's something we've kind of covered on the podcast as well, but never in sort of any great detail, and especially sort of personally as well, do you know what I mean? I think a lot of time we focused on band influences as well, and how, we all brought elements into the mix, from our influences, so to speak. Where's my Robinsons? So, and then the other thing as well is, I struggle to make a video talking about influences without just rambling on about Fleetwood Mac all the time. Do you know what I mean? Which really isn't the it's not the be all and end all of my influences. It was just the thing that sort of awakened me to music, if you know what I mean, when I was at a young age. So that's why it sticks with me so much. In the same way that, I suppose, people who love football, that FA Cup final you can remember, the first one you can remember, do you know what I mean? That made you really feel like the sort of excitement of it anyway. So, it's been a while since I made this style of video anyway, on podcast it's one thing, but I do sort of miss making these sorts of videos, so I thought I'd carry on this influences thing in this video. I'm out of breath, I've been running round, sorry. Catch my breath before I carry on, shall I? So, where did I leave off in last one? I realised it would probably been very rough, but I also realised there's a lot of things that I was listening to, especially sort of 15, 16, sort of a bit into 17 as well, because it's very much, for me, it's sort of split into before the band and then after the band started, if you know what I mean, kind of how I sort of look at music, really. But yeah, let's talk about some things that I was really listening to just as the band was starting to take off. I mean, there's lots of things, and I talked before about my brother's influences and what they were playing. I'd go in their CD collection and listen to stuff, and that's how I discovered all sorts. Well, the majority of the stuff, actually, especially at a young age, that I discovered, was through that Smashing Pumpkins. I got that from my brother Joe. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of different bands I can talk about, but I remember one album sort of at that time. I mean, we'll get onto things like the Verve and stuff like that, but this ain't going to be chronologically really, but Primal Scream, Exterminator. Is that the name of the record? It's one thing I'm bad at is names of albums and stuff like that, and even song titles a lot of times. But yeah, Primal Scream, Exterminator, I remember hearing that, and it's just it's really unique, I think, that record, really unique. I mean, I don't know how it fits in terms of, sort of Primal Scream's fan bases, top albums and that, but I absolutely love that album. It's proper fierce. Because, I suppose Primal Scream have got kind of their stages, haven't they? Like lots of bands. But, they've got that sort of stage where they kind of sound quite Stonesy. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously, the really psychedelic phase. And I don't know, I just felt with Exterminator, if that is the name of the record, I'm sure it is. But I just felt with that one, I don't. There was something else in that record. Do you know what I mean? Like all sorts of Shoot, Speed, Kill, Light. I mean, what a tune that is. Do you know what I mean? It's not even I don't know whether you call it a song really, because it's more like a vibe. But the music, the drums, and the production on that album, I absolutely loved it, and it's something that I had on constantly. Because I remember. I suppose that's a good place to start. Really, is what was I listening to? Sort of in sixth form when. I have a little mini disc player, and I used to walk to school every day. So the mini disc player, what would I have on it? So I'd have stuff like Primal Scream, Exterminator, and there'd be a lot of U2, especially early U2 at that time, at sixth form and that. a little bit like War and Boy and stuff like that, Unforgettable Fire, all that, like, you know, Joshua Tree as well, but I certainly remember, you know, I got a kick out of those really early records and how raw they are, especially how raw the guitar sounds. The old bands, you know what I mean? The old bands that sound proper raw on those early albums, and Bono's voice is mad. Getting on a drink and I'm getting out of breath again, what's going on? So yeah, and so what will have been, you know, like Primal Scream, you know, Exterminator, the Smashing Pumpkins obviously, and it'll have been Siamese Dream at that time, that'll have been on there, and there'll have been the Verve as well, Storm in Heaven in particular at that point, you know, tunes like Drive You Home, I love the Verve properly, but especially those early albums, some of the tunes on there, you know, like the more psychedelic stuff as well, where they're really expressing themselves, where Nick McCave's sort of doing his thing, do you know what I mean? Oh God. But yeah, what else will I have had on there? You know, so did I talk about Radiohead? I don't think so. You know, that were, yeah, well, my brother Joe introduced me to Radiohead. And that were, so I remember our Joe were into him for ages, you know, back Pablo Honey stage, and then the Bends. And I think at that point in time, like, I were into some quite heavy stuff as well. And I liked Radiohead, like, I love the songs. But I don't think I really connected with him until OK Computer. And, you know, that's just a groundbreaking album, innit, you know what I mean? Am I getting pen on my bloody top? That'll be typical of me. Yeah, just a really groundbreaking album. One way you listen to it and, you know, like Paranoid Android, you know, like the video for that and stuff. You know, I'll have to go back and listen to that again now, but it's just madness, isn't it? I mean, would you even say it's a bit like, you know, almost like Pink Floyd, do you know what I mean? Almost like what Pink Floyd were doing on Dark Side of the Moon. I can kind of, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are sat there going, what? But for me, like, whatever Floyd were doing on Dark Side of the Moon, I can see elements of that in OK Computer, do you know what I mean? As a record, and in terms of where it's not afraid of going, do you know what I mean? Where it's not afraid of going. You know, both groundbreaking albums, amazing bands. It's not a parallel I was intending to draw, to be honest, but it's one that I can see now I'm thinking about it, you know, now I'm thinking about it. But yeah, OK Computer, well, obviously stuff like Karma Police, you know, I think first time I heard Karma Police, that were my God, do you know what I mean? One of those moments. It's just an amazing song, that, and I guess as well, like, and this must happen to a lot of really classic records, is the fact that because they end up everywhere, it sort of ends up watered down, or not annoying, overplayed, you know what I mean? I suppose overplayed is the only word you could really level at it. In some instances anyway, but, you know, it's a timeless record, is that. You know, exit music for a film. Do you know what I mean? And then the Father Ted episode. The Father Ted episode where just after Ted's got him all joyous again, the chap who's down and he's driving away from Ted's house on the bus, and then exit music for a film comes on. I remember finding that hilarious. You know, I used to love that about Radiohead as well, because, you know, quite a dark personality myself or whatever, and I appreciate that in music. But I remember going to see him, how old will I have been? I've been 16. The big top tent tour, you know what I mean? The big tent tour that they did. I can't remember what it was called. But I remember during exit music for a film, you know, Tom York playing it and someone just shouted, "Cheer up, Tom." And I just thought it were, you know, it got a big laugh, but the funniest thing was the fact that Tom York just slowly gave the bird, you know what I mean? Still like singing the song. I'll never forget that, to be honest. But yeah, that's a great album. undeniable, and it's, you know, a great band. And even when you go back to the early albums, they're absolutely amazing. And then, you know, like the songs, you know, the songs on the second record, there's too many. Do you know what I mean? High and Dry, you know, Fake Plastic Trees. That's another one. That were another one where, even when, because I suppose when I was a bit younger, I did go through a little bit of a phase where if it wasn't really heavy, or if it didn't have a level of heaviness, although, you know, Radiohead do, I didn't sort of entertain it as much. And yeah, that definitely the case here in stuff like Fake Plastic Trees, because what a beautiful song, do you know what I mean? And they've got plenty of songs like that just stop you in your tracks. Beautiful. Yeah, so Radiohead. Well, you know, let's focus on that. What else did Joe introduce me to? Stuff like Portishead. Portishead, yeah. Joe was listening to stuff like that, and I found that enthralling. You know, because that was another one where sort of early doors, like, I didn't know whether I could sort of warm to her voice, even though I loved the sort of lo-fi music element and the beats and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, you just fall in love with her voice and how she uses it and how it fits into their sound. Do you know what I mean? That's quite an important thing, obviously, is how someone's vocal fits into the sound of a band. Let's just keep going freestyling. So that reminds me of someone like Bjork. Massive for me, Bjork. And I don't know why, but that's also made me instantly think of Prince, someone else. So, yeah, Bjork I discovered quite early again, but again, you know, for me, a lot of Bjork's singles have never been like her best songs. Do you know what I mean? A lot of Bjork's best songs are, you know, on the records and stuff, and, you know, there's some great remixes of Bjork stuff. You know, Howie B was quite involved with a lot of it. Especially, is it Homogenic, the second album? Oh, sorry, again, album numbers or whatever, I'm terrible at, but yeah, I can't remember the name of that album. But again, you know, tunes like Hyper Ballad, which obviously ain't on that record, that's on a different record, but, you know, Hyper Ballad is absolutely insane in it. Well, I think it is anyway. What a story that's told in that song, and I really do love that. And that'll lead me on to Bruce Springsteen if I keep talking in this way, like stories and that. But yeah, Bjork, you know, again, she has, you know, her voice is very much like an instrument, you know, at an insane level. And her writing, and again, the people she works with, the musicianship that it's on, you know, Unravel, for God's sake. You know, that's another one. You know, there's songs in the Roads by Portishead and Unravel by Bjork. There's loads of them that just stop you in your tracks. Highway 29, Springsteen. Tons to remember, but yeah, what was I thinking about then? I knew I'd get off track. But yeah, let's carry on talking about sort of Bjork. Because for me, like, anything that's good, do you know what I mean? It's not only anything that's got real feeling in it, and that comes across, like, I'll generally connect with it. You know, genre and that matters very little. So where we're going from, let me check time. Where we're going from Bjork. Yeah, you know, someone like Bruce Springsteen. Again, absolutely love Bruce Springsteen. Just amazing storyteller. You know, just genuine music. And, you know, if you want to talk about stories again, you've got people like Bob Dylan as well. And I think Bob Dylan's someone that, I don't know, you can either love him or hate him in some instances anyway. And, you know, we're never good on never fantastic on the old harmonica warrior, bless him. But anyway, you know, I love Bob Dylan, and I love his sound, and I love the way he tells stories, the way he constructs lyrics, and that's what, you know, the more I get deeper into writing songs and, you know, working on lyrics and stuff, the more that people like Bob Dylan just, you know, they absolutely, it's just ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? There's just, and again, there's too many songs. That will be a podcast or a YouTube video in itself. Like, there's too many Bob Dylan songs. You know, Spanish Boots or Spanish Leather. But, you know, and that's another thing with Bob Dylan is his great songs, Spanish career. Do you know what I mean? It's not like all his great songs are in the early days and then they get a bit rough. you know, all the way through to later albums, tracks like Not Dark Yet, do you know what I mean? Or Ring Them Bells, which, is that on, what's that on? Oh Mercy? I can't remember. Again, I'm terrible with albums and stuff like that, I just know songs and artists, but yeah, Ring Them Bells is just a massive tune. And just, again, someone that tells amazing stories, like Springsteen, in stuff like Highway 29 and See How I Can Get Off with Springsteen. You know, stuff like Secret Garden, for God's sake, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, regardless of what it were a song for, that's an amazing song and it will never stop being an amazing song. Neither, you know, Philadelphia. And I suppose that's slightly different really because that, you know, had such weight behind it anyway because of the substance in the film that, but you know, even apart from that film, that song is absolutely incredible. So we got, and then people like Neil Young, do you know what I mean? And that were massive for me. And I remember was it Big Day Out 05 or was it 03? But one of them anyway, I went through a massive Neil Young. So that's all I was listening to. I mean, I still listen to a lot of it, but you know, back then that was sort of all I was listening to with After the Gold Rush and Harvest. Do you know what I mean? Just on the beach, you know, just constantly. On the Beach is a great album. That's one I didn't discover till later on, actually. But yeah, that's something I'd love to talk about separately, really. Excuse me. Because again, there's too much detail to go into in one song. In one video. But yeah, sort of around that, I went through massive Neil Young phase and I went through massive Velvet Underground phase as well. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely massive. Absolutely. And again, you know, this is all sort of really different music. Well, it is in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, but I suppose the linking factor between it all is genuine, I suppose. I don't know, is that I like all that comes from the heart, do you know what I mean? That's got real feeling behind it, that actually means something. But you know, you can't beat a great hook as well, do you know what I mean? It totally depends, but that's generally what I go for, is that sort of music. So let's try and carry on that sort of, well, I did write a few things down. But you know, at the same time as all this, you got Rage Against the Machine, which was something that we all loved as a band, but I loved individually as well. Stu were massively into Rage as well, so were Phil. But again, you know, and when you're young and you've got ADHD and that, do you know what I mean? And you can get quite angry about stuff, and then there's Zach de la Rocha telling you that anger is a gift. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I love that line. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it legitimises something that's so big inside yourself. Do you know what I mean? Such a small, and especially how he sings it, or how he whispers it. What song is that on, Anger is a Gift? Is it Freedom? I can't remember. And again, I'm terrible, you know, for as much as I love music and I love bands and stuff, I'm terrible when it comes to naming records or naming songs or sometimes differentiating which bits are from which songs. But, you know, alright then, where have I gone there? Talk, massive for me, do you know what I mean? Spirit of Eden. And is it Laughing Stock? It is Laughing Stock. You know, Talk, they had their big commercial songs, which, you know, It's My Life's a great tune. But if you listen to something like Spirit of Eden or Laughing Stock, do you know what I mean? Especially if you're, you know, chilling out, shall we say, you can't get better music than that. Spirit of Eden. Like, the level of production on that. And, you know, speaking of production, actually, that's how I got introduced to that side of Talk. When we made our first album, and you know, I was talking to Jim Abbis about music he liked, and we were in the control room with the massive speakers, and he put on a couple of tracks from Spirit of Eden, Talk. Is that the name of the album? I'm pretty sure it is. And what else did he put on as well? He put Beastie Boys, Jacky Head on the massive, and you know, these speakers are enormous, do you know what I mean? Like, the sound they push out is absolutely phenomenal. Sorry, I'm not breathing right at the moment, don't worry, I ain't got COVID, it's just when I get excited I don't breathe properly and I take massive gasps. Sorry. I'm not editing it out though, I can't be asked. I'll just breathe for a second. That's enough of that. So yeah, what was the song Jacky Head, or was the album Jacky Head? I can't remember. Oh, but I'll never forget him starting that tune and turning System up, and at the beginning of that tune, the drums, oh my God. And that tune is fierce, you know what I mean? Like the way, you know, the way they do the vocals, the way they spit the lyrics effectively, you know, I love that. And, you know, that's why I'm massively into quite a lot of rap as well, do you know what I mean? Like early NWA, just like the anger or the injustice or just the emotion or whatever you want to call it, it completely, you know, it's screaming at you in it, do you know what I mean? It's not something that's you need to interpret. It's like these kids are angry. These kids are really angry, and you can tell. And you know that I love music like that. I absolutely love it. You know, I don't mean it has to be like, well, I don't know. I don't even know what you call it. You know, stuff like, I like angry music, but I'm not necessarily into tuneless angry music, if you know what I mean. Like, you know, that's why I love Nine Inch Nails. My God. You know, Trent Reznor, like, you know, as good as it gets really in terms of making music and a vocalist and a performer. And whatever else you want really. Proper inspiration. Love Nine Inch Nails, love his music and love his stuff that he does. You know, the things that he's done with soundtracks with Atticus Ross and the stuff he's done on his own. Has he done stuff on his own? Either way. You know, everything I've heard soundtrack wise is amazing, and all the Nine Inch Nails stuff is amazing. And again, it makes you feel something. Do you know what I mean? It really makes you feel something does his music. As does someone like Prince, you know, that's something I was meant to talk about earlier. And the thing I loved about Prince was the fact that pretty much he just does it all himself. Do you know what I mean? It's certainly in the studio anyway. He can play, well, bless him, he could play everything. And, you know, as a guitar player, as a bass player, have you seen him play bass? Gee, I mean, there's outtakes of him at his studios playing bass. It's like, my God, you know, as a musician and as a vocalist, absolutely insane. And that were, you know, Prince was definitely something when I was younger, sort of before 16, 17, you know, sort of before that I wouldn't have entertained. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why, it just felt corny to me or cheesy. But my God, you're wrong. You know, I've never been so wrong in my entire life. And I remember I borrowed from my mum, like Prince Greatest Hits. There were volume 1 and volume 2, weren't there? And in fact I think I took them both. And I sort of listened to them back to back, and it was at a time, as I say, when we were just starting to make music. And it was just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like the melodies as well, like, you know, his relationship with melody and harmony, and you could go on for days about Prince. And this is stuff that I'd like to do a podcast, actually, sort of talk more in depth about specific artists. But yeah, Prince, massive for me. Where was I going? I'll talk about angry music, won't I? Well, you know, yeah, I love stuff like Beth Orton as well, Central Reservation. That were a big album for me. When I were 18 and I sort of moved out of home and went and lived in my mate's spare bedroom for a bit, you know what you like at that age. Anyway, yeah, Central Reservation, we were playing all the time, me and my mates. We'd listen to that on Backstep. Yeah, me and Stephen Reed and Liam Rutherford, actually. Rutherford on occasion, Rubber Legs, bless him. Yeah, what else did we used to listen to there? We got right into Snoop, didn't we? We got right into Snoop Dogg. We always had that blasting out. My God, neighbours must have hated us there. To be fair, they were quite nice. Yeah, we had a bonfire night party, actually. We had a bonfire night party that got really out of hand. Yeah, and that will be a fun story to tell, actually. I'm sure if Originize is sat watching this video, she'll be giggling to herself about that, because that, well, so will quite a few people, because a lot of people came to that bonfire night party, and it got out of hand. It got out of hand, right? And it wasn't even our fault. Do you know when you just facilitate an area for people to become, you know, I don't know, out of control. But anyway, yeah, that was a fun night. But what else were we listening to around then? because that's what I, you know, especially back then, I'd just find something that I loved and I'd bloody hammer it, do you know what I mean? Be it, you know, but I'm trying to think if there anything else specifically we were listening to then, or if I can, let's go from here, because I've got some things written down. Well, yeah, I got a lot of that. Sigur Rós, I think I covered Sigur Rós, you know, in the last influences thing that I did, although I think I covered Nine Inch Nails as well, but yeah, Sigur Rós, I mean, we can talk a bit about that. You know, because I was listening to a lot of Mogwai and stuff, especially like going into the band. And before, Rob Hurst really got me into Mogwai, one of my mates. But also like Sigur Rós were doing, well, you know, it's not that, let's face it, it's on the same trajectory of what Mogwai were doing anyway in terms of making, well, you know, for the most part instrumental in it, because he effectively invented his own language, didn't he? So it's not like you're listening to lyrics, you're listening very much to sounds. So Sigur Rós blew my mind. I'm trying to think exactly when I sort of, you know, was introduced to that, and I'm pretty sure it was when we first got involved with Coalition, and they effectively gave us like a box of, you know, sample CDs and stuff, just all kinds of stuff, just to get us listening to different stuff. And I think some Sigur Rós might have been in there. So, you know, that will have been 16, won't it? 16, so yeah, just 16. So yeah, that'd be about right. I'm pretty sure that's how I discovered them. And it was the really, was it like the fetal design on the dark background, that album? I can't remember. But yeah, that was really big for me, sort of going into the band. Massive Attack as well. And that's one I could talk about for a long time. Massive Attack. You know, every one of their albums really, but it's definitely Mezzanine. You know, that's another record that it's just mind blowing. Especially if you know do really good hi-fi. Because one thing about like our family, my dad's always been hi-fi obsessed, so effectively he'd get a really great hi-fi system, use it for a bit, you know, move on from it, shall we say, and that get moved into our Tom's bedroom or something, and then my dad would get something else, so then our Tom would give that to me, and it'd be like this constant cycle of ever improving hi-fi equipment that we'd all effectively get the benefit of, do you know what I mean? So, you know, stuff like, and especially when you put a great pair of headphones on as well, and you listen to something like Massive Attack, Mezzanine, do you know what I mean? It gets into your mind as that album when you've got it on headphones. It's so, like, I don't know, it's difficult to describe that one, but it's like a presence, a really ominous presence. That whole album, that's a great way to sum it up. That whole album, Mezzanine, is just an ominous presence in it, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, creeping up on you, not to coin an Inertia Creeps lyric, but that's a great album. How long have I been recording here? 30 minutes. Well, I think I've rambled enough there. I think I might just leave it there, to be fair. But yeah, I've enjoyed this actually. I've enjoyed doing it a bit more like this format, and you know, Pete's not cutting me off, man. Do you know what I mean? When I'm having trains, what a joke. No, I love Pete. I love Pete, bless him. But yeah, I've enjoyed this. It could go on forever, so I'll stop it here. But yeah, thanks for watching as usual. Thank you.